Tough, you're on.
Hi everyone, my name's Colette. Welcome to the LGBT question and answers. I'm going to have the authors go ahead and introduce themselves. And if you want to give the name of your latest book out, go ahead. Stephanie, can I start with you?
Hi, my name is Stephanie Burke, also known as Flash. I write for about 6 way too many publishing houses right now. And my latest release actually happens to be a re-release of a book called The Slayer. It was one of my first books out with Alora's Cave, and it has a whole lot of LGBT elements.
I'm Megan Slayer, and I write for probably about as many publishers as Flash does. Predominantly, yeah, we bond over ours too, though.
Yeah, we do.
We do. My latest is from Resplendence, and it's called Desiring the Leading Man, and it's got bondage in it.
Hi, I'm Samantha Kane, and I just write for 3 publishers. I have an MMF Menage series, which is historical with Alora's Cave, and I have a new MM series coming out with Sam Hain, which is called the Mercury Rising series, and that first book, Cherry Pie, will be released in September. And the next book in my Brothers in Arms series, which is the Menage series with Alora's Cave, will be coming out July 11th. And I also have a mainstream Regency historical series with Love Swept.
Okay. Which is the hardest to write, an alpha hero or a beta hero?
Oh.
Which one? Because I talk a lot.
Well,
Pick
Either
one.
well, gosh, I'm going to say for me, an alpha hero, but I'm told that I write them and I don't do that on purpose. So that's, you know, I think my heroes are more beta, but I'm told they're alpha, and I'm not quite sure how, because I kind of equate alpha with asshole, and I would definitely say that my heroes are not. But so I'm gonna, I guess for me, alpha.
I'm on that.
Okay.
That boat too, because I equate it with being an asshole, and apparently mine are very mild mannered.
I write gamma males. They're kind of both an alpha and a beta. They can be in charge when they need to, but if they need to step back and let somebody do it, they have no problems with that. They're confident enough in themselves. So I like trying to mix the best of both worlds. I do write a mean asshole, though.
You do. She does. I read it.
And there's a time and place to it.
Exactly.
Okay. I know all of you write series. What is the hardest part about writing a series, or the easiest?
Go ahead.
The hardest part is stopping, because you get murdered threats and pitchforks if you end the series before your readers move the tip. And then if it's a really great series, they keep packing them on. I have one series with Changeling Press called the How Not to Date series. It was like nominated for a few awards 2 years ago. Love this series, but the readers keep giving me ideas for it. Right now I have plotted about 74 How Not to Dates. So I had to take a break from them, and which meant that I started the Angel Falls series, which is heavily LGBT, and I mean, everything that you can imagine in this town happens in this town, and I've got it down to 3 more books. But my editor is telling me 3 more books is not enough. So for me, getting ideas for a series are quite easy. I can just pump them out like this. It's just finding that stopping point. When you know when you flood the market or your readers had enough. I guess when they, you know, finally go, okay, we're not going to murder you if you don't give us XY stories. So.
Okay. 74. Wow, I'm blown away on that one. I don't know how to follow that up. Wow. I usually stick to like 4.
But they're all not about this. That's the unique thing about
it. Is it hard making them like be continuous and like having them be like standalone books as well?
For me, the Desiring series, the Club Desire series, it's been really hard to keep them. It's really hard to keep them. It's really hard to keep them standalone, because the first book has 2 characters, and then the character for the second book shows up at the end, and then you see in the second book it's from his point of view versus their point of view. So that kind of made it hard, but I knew I only wanted 4, so that was the easy part. I said, "Oh, it's gonna be 4." Done.
I think it was Twitter, probably. We all live there. And Laurel K. Hamilton made an offhand comment, and I agree with it so much. And she said, you know, the bane of a series author's existence is the casual mention in your book. And I would definitely agree with that. You know, if you casually mention a character or a place or an event, and all of a sudden a reader will grab onto that, and they want that story. Or when you're writing, you know, as the series goes on, and you're like, I know I mentioned that, but it was just a brief mention, and I can't remember where or when, and then you have to go back and you have to read like all 12 books in order to find where you mentioned that one little thing, because, you know, readers they're, I remembered that, and that's not what you said in you know, book 2, and it's like, I'm sorry, you know it better than I do.
And they gather people with them, so it's not just one. They'll tag their friends. Do you remember this? No. And they'll go back and read it, and she'll go, right. And then there's a pack of them. And they're like,
so I do. I think that is, you know, you kind of have to self-censor yourself. And say, I really want to say that, but do I really want to have to deal with that in the next book? And, you know, no. But, so that's difficult. I would also say, what is the most difficult thing? You asked about making it standalone as well as part of the series. And that can be difficult the more books you write. I found it easier to make the earlier books in the series standalone as opposed to the later books, because readers want to revisit, you know, favorite characters from earlier in the series, and new readers have a tendency to be like, you know, well, who is that and what's their story and why is this important? And so, you know, you end up having to make the books twice as long, or just reach the point where you say you kind of have to read the first book. So I think the longer a series goes on, the harder it is to write it as standalone.
And when you're doing your series or just books in general, do you do a lot of research for your writing? I mean, what's like the craziest thing you found while researching?
And yeah, you can be completely X-rated if you want to be. It's all fun.
She does Hump Day Wednesdays, okay? And she tags people like me every week, and I love it. And she finds me pictures, and some of these are the most
upside down leather bondage spinning wheel.
Oh, I was thinking of the dong that was this long.
The penis festival. You gotta write this.
Oh yeah, we gotta write it at some point. But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, my God.
What would you do with this?
Yeah. Where am I gonna go with this? And then I go talk to Flash, and she says, well, let me tell you.
I'll send you pictures.
I was gonna say, I kind of want to see this. Oh,
I know.
It seems just a little bit exaggerated.
Picture of it.
Every Wednesday, it's a theme.
No, I want to see the mile-long dong.
Oh, I keep them in
Can't
albums.
miss it.
I'll put them in albums so you can go back and find them. I do a lot of paranormal creatures. And
a lot? That's wild.
A lot of I don't. I missed a chat. It was at Writer Space, and somebody said Flesh should write a were skunk. It should be How Not to Date a Skunk. The next thing you know, they're screaming How Not to Write a Skunk. I've got 200 messages. Where's the skunk book? So I had to research skunks. That's not. I've researched roaches because I did a were roach one time. Were rats. And then I think the weirdest thing was the centaurs, because there are no centaurs. I have threesome between 2 male
That was
centaurs
a fun book.
and a huge woman. No, it's the anatomy of it, because it has to be plausible. So my daughter will never forgive me. All her little stuffed horse animals.
You did not. Oh my God.
How long does this penis have to be? Maybe I'll give him 2, one in the front, one in the back. I just had to rework their anatomy and make it work. And then I had to add sex platforms to actually make it possible for a human, because he just can't flop on top of the horse body. And there's extra arms, and then there's legs down there. How do the arms move? How do the legs move? It was a month-long process before I started writing, researching this. And it was ridiculous. Especially when she walked in and caught me. Wow. What are you doing, my horses?
So,
Why is the Barbie on top? Okay, let me explain. I don't want to know. This is what happens when your mother writes smut. Everything has, because you run a gauntlet when you do so many series. If there's bondage, you have to go and research bondage. Don't do internet. Go talk to people. If you're doing gay male characters. You're doing a male. I'm not a male. I don't know how getting buttoned up the butt feels. So I have to go and find every gay friend that I have. Give me details about your sex life. No, I don't really want to watch. Okay, I can watch. Can I bring a camera and take pictures?
Can I take notes too? Really, it does that? Oh my god, it does.
You have to ask. Same thing when you're doing lesbian. I'm completely hetero at this point. Who knows? Maybe in the future, some woman will walk by and I'll give up everything that just has to happen. Hasn't happened.
Dan won't let you do that.
Dennis will probably love that because he's been waiting for this for years. He's been trying to convince
But
me.
he won't let you just be.
As long as he can watch, right?
He wants to be there.
Yeah.
But I go and ask them about their motivations, the thought processes. I'm not a man, so if I'm doing a male character, I have to ask a man, how would you feel about this opinion? You know, this situation. You have to research when you're writing everything. I'll keep talking. I'll keep going. I have lots of stuff to do.
Well, I was gonna say, I just, the weirdest thing is I go on my Facebook page and see the picture she was tagged me, and I go, okay,
Okay, someone needs to take this over so I can look this up.
That's how I remember.
What about the ladies with the penis and hair and the
I don't
pieces
remember
glued in
that
her
one.
face?
I don't remember that
I'll
one. But
resend it.
you will resend it.
I will resend it.
Or the one where he was in, I believe he was in leather and you couldn't see his face because everything from the head down to the waist was all covered in like a bag.
Yeah. Latex.
It's like, what is
That's
that?
like Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell are you doing?
You must think of something. You must think of something.
I don't really research weird sexual positions. I'm sorry, my books are, other than being,
Because yours are yours says a historical romance, right?
Yes, so Brothers in Arms is historical, and most of my research involves historical research. I do a lot of research into the Peninsular War. So, for instance, in Love's Fortress, I had a hero who was severely injured in the war, so he's missing most of a leg, and he has burn scars over half of his body. And so I had to research. I knew the injury I wanted him to have, and so I had to research which battle he was injured at and how that occurred. So I had to do a lot of research into warfare, and that's when I discovered the Chevaux de Fer. Which, if any of you have read that, that was how I had him injured, and it was at the siege of. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the town. I hate it when that happens, but anyway, whatever battle it was. But it was the siege of a fortress town, and what the French would do is they would stick bayonets in the ground with the sharp ends pointing up, and they would line like a trench with those, and then in order, the troops had to crawl over, and so literally at this particular battle, they ended up crawling over the dead bodies that had been impaled on them. And then there was a flash fire in the trench, and so what happened is that an explosion, is they basically exploded bombs, and so my hero was hit with the explosion, and then he also fell onto the Chevaux de Fer. So I had, that was probably one of the most interesting research quandaries that I had, was to try and very specifically figure out how he could have the injuries that I wanted him to have. So I love it. That's Gideon. So,
What's the steamiest book that you guys have out that you think that you've written?
At the moment, I would have to say, due to fan reaction, is Greek Style, which is a razor's edge at changing the press. And it's a threesome that involves a whole field of marijuana burning, a satyr, a fawn, and one confused tourist who was just passing by and got caught up in a sex ritual. And that one, I think, is the steamiest because of the situation. But not only that...
Because there's a fire?
Oh, no. Well, the marijuana was burning.
I know, but...
Oh, hallucinogenics.
Well, that's like that really, really weird steam that they had going.
Yeah.
But it's actually researching, going back to Greek and Roman mythology and researching fawns and satyrs and goat parts. So, and then separating the fawn from the satyr, because the fawn's a little and tinier. They have the narrow penis that's really great for anal. And of course, the satyrs are the ones that can go all night, and trying to get these in an upside down sex thing. It's a lot of really, and the sad thing, it's so funny, it's hysterical, but it's all the interesting sexual positions and the new sexual parts that had to go in, and then sitting down and imagining how it would feel at this point. So we had to add drugs into that just to make it beautiful. But to sit down and figure out how everything goes, and then going back and researching positions, so much porn, just to try to figure out what I wanted them to do if it was possible. So at the moment, that one is one of the steamiest ones. And it's not a happily ever after. So, wham, ma'am, thank you, ma'am, for now. Really great one-handed reading. But it works. Apparently. According to the...
Love the bird feel.
And she was just trying to find poppies. It's just a joke. Poppies, poppies. She finds sex rituals with quads and satyrs.
Nice. I feel so worried next to you.
No, you're not. Stop that.
I'm just gonna say I just have double penetration with a football or with a baseball player. It's a baseball player in a bondage club where people are watching him. I guess that's my steamiest, and that's in Bases Loaded.
Exhibition is on?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Preparation age.
The Vaseline. Your Vaseline.
Steamiest book. Ooh, I'm kind of stumped. I don't really know. I think they all have kind of the same feel. I do know when I was writing Retreat from Love, I had a heroine in that book who was much more interested in how men had sex, and she wanted to be much more involved in that than in my previous books. And I remember at a couple of points I had to send that to my critique partner and say, I don't know, have I gone too far? And she was like, oh no, it's fine. It's totally, you know, it's fine because it's really with the story and with that character, and it's fine. So, but, so I think in that series, probably that one and Prisoner of Love are probably the two steamiest in that series, I think. So, but I have a lot of people who tell me The Courage to Love, but I think that's just because it's the first one in the series and it's the first one they've read. And for a lot of people, it seems to be the first menage they've read. I don't know why. I seem to bring them to the dark side, I guess, with my series.
That's
so,
fun.
I guess. I did, I guess. So.
Do you have a favorite book that you've written?
Oh, wow. You know, we get asked this question a lot. And I have favorites for different reasons. So, for instance, The Courage to Love is one of my favorites because it was my first erotic romance, the first book that I sold. You know, that has a special place in my heart. I love Love's Fortress, which we talked about because of the wounded hero, and I really dealt with PTSD in that book quite a bit. So, I mean, it's probably, I think, my most emotional book. But my Mail that's coming with Sam Hain in September is one of my favorite books. It's a contemporary, and it takes place in a small North Carolina town. And that's my home. So I put a lot of love in that just for the state and for the people and everything about that, because I just, you know, it's kind of like my love poem for my state. So it sounds silly, but it is. So, you know, I'd say those are three of my favorites, but I love them all in different ways.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on the.
Yeah.
Because I have one. It's not out yet. I just sold it to Decadent. It's called Redeeming Reagan, and it's based on a small town in northern Ohio where it's really cold, because everything in northern Ohio is really cold, and the guys are really hot. So I like that one because I never lived in actual zero Ohio, but I've lived in very cold Ohio, where 8 inches of snow is, oh, that's a mild snow. No, that's 8 inches of snow. Oh, that's a mild snow. So that would be my favorite of those, and because it's kind of like yours, it's my Ohio story. But my other favorite right now would be Desiring the Leading Man, because I got to play with actors. I got to make actors have. I got to have sex. It was fun. I got to have sex, and there were toys.
Object insertion alone.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah.
Always fun.
And that was the 4th book in the Of Desire series. Your turn.
Okay. Now this one is hard because The last book that just dropped is book number like 79 in my career. And it always goes back to my first book, Keeper of the Flame. That is my pregnant male alien who crash lands on Earth and immediately gives birth to twins.
Wait, did you say pregnant male?
Yeah.
Pregnant male alien. Crash landed, gave birth to twins, and then he's trying to integrate into society here. But he comes from a matriarchal society where he has this amazing power to control fire. But all the women on his planet have that. He's just an oddity. And he has a twin sister, and it's just amazing that she doesn't have the same power. And it's assassinations, it's murder attempts, it has really dark parts, but really, really funny parts. And Flame has always been my first love, because as I was writing this, you can watch him grow and develop into that perfect gamma male. And all with mothering instincts, because his children are all, and it was just so wonderful to write. And I just couldn't believe that it was awesome. I wrote the story. I didn't think anybody would really like it. It got published, and the publisher said, you know, you've written erotica. I didn't know it was erotica. I thought everybody's sex life was like this. I thought it was a realistic approach to
I
it.
thought everybody had pregnant males.
Well, you didn't see him getting pregnant with them. It was a lot of machinery involved in that.
Well, I'm just saying you said everybody, and
Yeah, I like the whole idea of men having babies.
But
I
his
like.
sex life, he was dedicated. All the men are trained to do nothing but please women, because that's all you are. You're a beast of burden. You carry the children because your body's more developed for that, and then you have to sex them up properly to keep them from killing you. So he is very learned. He's a very learned man. He's very trained, and all that passion and that fire that he has that he's been tamping down, when that finally exploded, it's like, oh my God, I love that. It was elements of everything, of every hero that I've ever read or watched and loved. I wound that up in there, and he was just the perfect character for me. I also have to say one of my favorites is Luca Various, because my baby Luca Various was, he was just that, I set out to write an alpha. Later on he became a gamma. But he was just an asshole. He was a vampire. He was supposed to be allergic to silver. He had silver rings on his fingers, silver rings on his toes. All his ears were tear-slit. They tried to poison him, but guess what? His mom started poisoning him from the time he was a child a little bit. So he was basically immune to all poisons. This guy looked like he was unstoppable until you got his vulnerable point. He sucked his thumb when he was sleeping because he felt abandoned. And I mean, it was just taking such a superhero, overpowered character and then smacking him with the grip of reality and giving him such wonderful vulnerabilities to exploit. That was so much fun, taking him from this arrogant asshole to this something that you want to, you know, beat down, wash, mold into something, and then take him home and show your mama. That was great. And I have to say, one of my third favorites, since everybody's got three, is How Not... Huh?
I only did two.
Oh, well, you have to come back to it. But How Not to Date a Bear.
That was a good one.
That one was developed here at Lloyd Foster, along with Shelby the Wonder Sheep.
It was.
But
Oh my God, poor Shelby.
you know, she's awesome. They want book two. So
Yeah.
I'm going to work on that one. But for How Not to Date a Bear, it's Russian bear shifters, polar bear shifters. And they're bears, because I love really big, muscle, hairy men. Oh my God, I love them. They're awesome. And he's avoiding war in Russia. He comes here to start a new life, and he finds a woman who does, I'm not even going to give the major hysterical plot point away. She really injured him in a way that she did not mean to. She did something to him, and now he's embarrassed to shift into his bear form. And there's a war building on her front porch, and he's supposed to be in bear form to stop it, and he can't. But Deacon was just, I'm going to kill her. Why am I not going to kill this? I would kill anybody else who did this to me, but all I want to do is love her more. Oh my God, why? And it just, his confusion and his like, I don't understand why I'm not ripping her head off. Instinct said I should be killing her, but I just want to take her upstairs and do her in the shower. So it's the situation. It's mostly the situation that she put him in inadvertently. I love that story. I wish I could tell you, but I want somebody to actually go and read the book. It's so hysterical. I laughed till I cried through the whole thing, and I actually had somebody read. I got in trouble at work because I wasn't supposed to be reading. I read this and screamed with laughter, and people wanted to know what I was reading, so she had like 5 or 6 people gathered around her computer, and they're all laughing. When the boss comes in, I was like, oh, I'm I'm sorry, but it's just, I love comedy, and it's just funny, the situations that I love. Oh, I'll shut up because I talk a lot. So pregnant male aliens and vulnerable vampires who actually have major vulnerabilities, and big, hairy, muscly bear men. I love them. Muscly.
I guess along with that, what do you want your readers to come away with after reading one of your books?
I want to run every human emotion that's possibly felt right in there. I want you to be wrung out by the time you get to the end of this book. I want you to be mad at me. I want you to cry. I want you to cheer. I want you to laugh. I want you to feel every emotion that I felt when I was putting in that story. It's always been my opinion that a writer makes a contract with a reader. The contract says, I will try to create something that will help you with your escapism. It will drag you out of the world, and I guarantee that I will not do anything stupid that will pull you out of the fantasy. And the reader's response when they pick up that book, their part of the contract is, I will try to suspend disbelief and get into your world and understand it. So when you give me that trust, because that is a major trust, I want to fulfill everything. I want you to feel tired and wrung out and needing a nap when you get to the end of my story. I want you to say, that was great. I can't wait to see what happens else in this world. And I want you to feel satisfied, just sated at the end. I want you to feel glutted, that I can't take anymore, I'm done, and just sit back with that, Thanksgiving dinner feeling and just soak it up for a while. That's what I want.
I want to know how to follow that up.
You can.
Good. I want ditto.
Or we can open up the floor to questions if anyone has any.
First.
We have gift cards.
What do you want to answer?
Well,
She said a lot of it. That's why I'm not sure how to answer.
I said I talk a lot.
Okay. A friend of mine, another historical romance author, and she writes MF, mainstream historical, and she read Cherry Pie. And at the time, we were just mere acquaintances. I mean, we didn't know one another that well. But she emailed me, and she said, I never send fan letters, but I'm sending you one because this book was so emotionally wrenching, and yet at the same time it was so uplifting that the romance in this book was genuine. She goes, that's how I feel like it should always be. And it made me want to write that way. She said, but what I really want to tell you is that it was so genuine and so real that I want everyone to read this. Everyone in the world should read this book because I think that stories like this can change the world. And I felt, that was had such an impact on me. And of course, I emailed her back and I was like, Renee, that's so beautiful. Because that really touched me. And I guess in my own little way, that's what I try to do with my stories because, most of my stories, even my mainstream historical stories, have an element of, the outsider, or, someone who's different, and acceptance, at the end of the book. So I guess that's what I kind of want people to feel. I want to change their outlook on life when they finish my book.
I want them to find my hero and say, I want him. I want him. And then I want him to say, oh, the second chance is something that should have happened. Because I have a thing for second chances. Probably because most of the time when I try to make a first impression, I goof up or trip or fall or something. And so I like, all the time. So I like second chances. I think that's really cool. Seeing people redeem themselves. I think, and I want the reader to come away and say, I had to root for this guy or girl or whomever because I had to see how that would end. And I felt like I just left my best friends when I shut the book.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask?
I have a question. Right in the back corner. And this may be just as off the wall kind of, but just for classification purposes, for you all, for LGBT, is that the mindset that the couple or coupling, that's who ends up together, or can you also be classified in that genre if you just have a scene, maybe a female, but actually they end up with males at the end. I mean,
Who does your happy ever after have to be in? Is that what you're trying to say?
well, I guess I'm just saying.
Can any scene or any element to the book make that an LBGT book?
That's what I'm asking now. I mean,
Even if it's not, your main
character.
character.
Well, or let's say, for instance, I don't know, my main character finds you very attractive, and I hook up with you at a club, but then I end up with
Ooh, live role playing.
Hugh Jackman. Ultimately,
Who wouldn't want to end up with Hugh Jackman?
Well, suddenly it's someone else.
yeah, why not?
She's writing fantasy.
I think it has to be about the plot. If the plot is about her finding her sexuality and exploring it, and then maybe deciding I'm going to put this off and go with this guy because I like this guy better, or maybe I'm not going to be anything, I'm going to explore everything for a while, then yes. But if I am writing a story and I just have a peripheral scene, like in The Reaper of Souls, I have some secondary characters, Jack and Jillian, and they are hysterically funny, and they have a lot of pain in their past, and that's explored a little bit, but they are a gay couple. That doesn't make The Reaper of Souls a LBGT book, because the plot line, the main characters, and the whole overall story was not that. Now you look at like the first in the Angel Falls series. That one is definitely LBGT. The plot is about the hero being the ex-football player, being a homosexual, about the fake creature that finds him and helps him, finding him very attractive, and then dealing with a town that's, I love Angel Falls, anything happens and everybody it's accepting of it. But because the main plot of that story is those two romances, that fish out of water, them connecting, it is an LBGT book.
Okay, now I think I understand that.
Now, have you found that as authors of the LGBT session, have you found that you've had a harder time selling your books or finding readerships, or how niche of a category have you been, and have you been able to expand out of it without leaving that LGBT romance? If that makes sense.
I don't know. I write a little bit of everything, so I don't necessarily find it constricting, because if that's what those characters want to do, then that's what that series or those characters do. And then because I have one that's a male-female, and she's got best friends that are gay, and everybody wanted that story. Well, it's that story. It's a male-female relationship, but because they like Berto and Remy, I ran with them in a free read. So I mean, I don't find it constricting. I don't see it as a big deal. If you want that, then there's that, and if you want to go this way, then there's this way. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I didn't really understand the question. Do you find it constricting on our writing or on selling the story?
Both. I mean, like, do you find, like, when you try to sell your story, are you finding, like, it hard to get out there? Because there's this whole thing about diversity and reading and writing and all that. And, like, how much has that been affecting you?
I sold my first Brothers Norris book back in 2006. And strangely enough, it wasn't selling it. I actually entered it in a contest because the judge was the editor at Laura's Cave that I was really interested in. And I had a harder time entering it in the contest